Is your team kind of stuck in a spot where the effectiveness is not what you'd like? Or maybe you're getting lots of things done, but it just feels harder than it should? I'm going to share with you an exercise that I use with teams to help them reset and get a sense of what's working, not working, where to go from here. So I'm going to walk you through this exercise, and you have a couple of options. One, you can just watch this video, pause when I tell you to pause, do the exercise yourself, and get your own, aha, interesting. Or you can use this, show it in a team meeting, and do it as a team-based exercise. You may do it yourself first, and if you like it, share it with your team. But either way, what I'm going to ask is that you grab a paper and pencil, and I'm going to walk you through each set of instructions, ask you to pause, do the exercise, and then come back for the next set of instructions. Okay? Sound good? So make sure you've got figured out where the pause button is. That's important. And then grab a piece of paper and a pencil, and we'll get started. Okay, step one. In step one, I want you to think about, how did our team get to where we are today? How did we get to this state of either dysfunction or just kind of malaise, some version of it's not what we want it to be? How did you get here? What's the trail of breadcrumbs that led to this, strange and creepy cabin in the woods that the team is in right now? Did you take a wrong turn at the, willow tree? Who did what? What happened? What were the situations? Really tell the story of how did you get to where you are today. So I'm going to ask you to pause and, write a chunk about how your team got to where you are today. Okay, done? Awesome. Step two. I want you to think about, how do we get out of here if we found ourselves in this predicament, either of the team is not doing what it needs to do, we're letting people down, or just it's a lot harder than it feels like it needs to be. I want you to now write about, what do I think it's going to take to make this better? What would help us get back on track, become more productive again, maybe make it feel a little better? So that's the second question. What is it going to take to make your team the kind of high-performing team that you deserve to be a part of? So pause, answer that question, and then come back for step three. Step three. Okay, I want you to look at your first answer. And there will be lots of details in your first answer, and I'm less interested in the details and much more interested in two words. How often do you see the word I, or me? And how often do you see the word they, or you, or somebody else's name? So when you tell yourself the story of how your team got to what's not working today, who is the antagonist in that story? Is it you? Is your paragraph full of situations where well, I did this or I didn't do that? Are you taking ownership and accountability? Or is your paragraph full of well, they did this and they did that? One of my clients used to refer to this as their corporate salute, because blame was so much a part of the culture before we got started. So that's step three. I want you to think about it. And so pause, take a sec, circle the I's, the we's, the they's. Just get a sense of how much of the story you're telling yourself about how you got to where you are is a story where you feature prominently versus somebody else featuring prominently. Okay, step four. Look at the second paragraph you wrote. Same question. Is it full of I and me? Or is it full of, well, until the boss changes this, or this jerk leaves? Or is it a story where you are a key part of making your team healthier and better? Or is it a story where you're waiting for everyone else to change things? It's another really important question, because we as humans are storytellers, and we make sense of our world by creating stories and narratives about what we believe is true, and those guide our behavior. So if you've decided that this is everybody else's fault, it's much less likely that you're going to do the things to make it better. So have you got your answers to questions 3, and 4. So in your first paragraph, how much of that was, nope, I get it, I own part of where we're at, versus how much did you kind of blame it on others? And in your second paragraph, do you have a sense of whether you see yourself, or saw a couple minutes ago, saw yourself as a part of the solution, or whether you're waiting for everyone else to fix it? Okay, that's going to lead us to step 5. I want you to think about the 4 different possibilities that creates. So it may be that you said, I wasn't part of the problem and I'm not going to be part of the solution. I'm just a spectator to all of this. Well, being a spectator to your own team dysfunction, wow, that's sad because you do have agency. You do have an opportunity to make things better. And if you're just sitting on a runaway train waiting to go off the cliff, well, that makes me sad. So I want you to think about it. And in the next step, I'm going to ask you to actually figure out, how do you move out of that box? Because that spectator or victim box is not somewhere you want to be. All right, here's another possibility. You saw yourself as part of the problem, but not as part of the solution. You were all over paragraph 1, but not in paragraph 2. You've made yourself the villain of your own story. That's kind of interesting. And so, first of all, kudos to you for owning up to your part in what's not working. But there's such a lost opportunity if you don't see how you can actually make it better. And it may be because you just honestly feel like you've dug a hole too deep for you to get out of. And if that's the case, let me know in the comments. I'll try and provide some specific things that might be helpful for you in the situation you're in. But it's really unfortunate if you've painted yourself as the villain of your own story. Okay, the other possibility is that you don't feel that you were part of creating the problem, but you do think you're a big part of making things better. That might be okay if you really weren't a big part of creating the problem. But here's the risk. The risk is that you are naive about, or kind of not self-aware about how you contributed to the problem. And then you just go running into a phone booth, putting on your superhero cape and diving in. There might be some resentment from folks who are like, what's with you being the savior? Or trying to be the hero in this situation. So if you're in that spot, I would try and find some way that you owned how you got there. Even if it's, look, I should have said something sooner. That's good enough. But it says, I had some kind of a role in this. So I don't want you being the hero or the savior where you only think you're part of the solution and don't see how you were part of getting to the situation you're in today. What, of course, I'm hoping for is that you get to the spot where you see, here is how I contributed to the problem, and here's how I can be a part of the solution. In all the times I've done this exercise, I've only ever had one person who was there the first time around, because it's just really not that common. It's we as humans fall victim to what's called the fundamental attribution error. If things go wrong, for us, we think it was just the situation and nothing, true of us. And if things go wrong for other people, we think it's something inherently wrong and broken in them. So it's not surprising that we haven't had very many people here. But what we're looking for is to get to the point where you understand your role in how the team got to where it is, but also your huge opportunity to change how you behave and change how the team works. So that leads us to the final step, step 6. And in step 6, I want you to redo your answers, particularly to question 2. If you have time or you think it's important, do 1 and 2, but change your answers to question 2 to make sure you now all understand, here's what we're going to do differently. And I want you to have your new version of the second answer be full of statements that start with I will do this, or I won't do this. Those things are strong statements, not I hope this happens, or I might, or I'll try. Those are all really limp things to put in your commitments. So fill that second paragraph now with I will statements. So this exercise, one of my favorites. I know it's a little painful because the real likelihood is that you probably didn't have a lot of I and me in your first paragraphs, and it can be hard to admit that. So that leads me to one other caveat. I don't think you have to share your paragraphs out loud with anyone in the first 4 steps, first 5 steps. It's enough that you read that and let it soak in. The only ones I encourage you to share with everybody else are step 6. What's your commitment? Where do you get to by the end of the exercise? So I hope this exercise gives you as much insight as it does for my clients. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm happy to help. But it's such an important way to understand what's the story you're telling yourself about the team and get yourself a new narrative that's going to help you earn the team that you deserve. All right, more team issues? Check out this.